Love it.
Oh.
Welcome to Good Vibe Solutions. Your host, Oliver Aleakwe, is off screen, but you need to focus on the special guests that we have. In this video today, we'll be discussing the UK education system with our lovely guests, ALANNA O'GARRO.
Hello. Hi.
And Oliver.
Hey.
We are going to start off with Dear Education, a letter written by ALANNA.
Dear Education, what has politics done to you? It has tarnished your name, misappropriated your essence, and limited your brilliance. It has used you as a tool of oppression and compliance. It has blocked you from reaching your beneficiaries, abused and discarded your advocates, and has put an imposter in your place. An imposter that preaches better standards and equal opportunities for all, but perpetuates disparities of access. No, it deliberately does this by design. I know your truth. I know your power. I know your reach. You, education, are the last great equalizer. You have the ability to make the weak strong. You guide communities out of poverty. You empower the downtrodden to fight, cause the brainwashed to question. You end wars and eradicate ignorance. You create beauty and inspire innovation. The funny thing, dear education, is that you exist whether we honour you or not. You are not dependent on governmental bricks and mortar, bounded pages or moustached individuals to be. You occur in our experiences, our conversations, our play and our curiosity. However, when we do not honour you, our growth as humanity is stunted. But, education, I will fight for you. I will search for you. I will join fellow foot soldiers and return you to your glory. Reverence and love, Rivers.
ALANNA and Echo, tell us about what you do and why that letter came about.
So I run a social enterprise, an educational social enterprise called Rivers Coaching. And you can find it on riverscoaching.com. You can follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Facebook. I'd love people to like the page and follow us. I've been running the company for the past 5 years, and what we do is we coach teachers teaching in deprived areas. It came about as a result of the fact that I was a former maths teacher teaching in Southeast London, and it wasn't until I became a teacher and was on that side of education that I realised that it's terrible. I think it's failing all our children, every single one of them, but it particularly fails those from the poorest backgrounds. And being a black person and knowing the intersectionality of being black and often coming from poorer backgrounds, I think, it fails us the most. And so I set up this social enterprise to challenge that. And essentially, I want to dismantle the education system because I think it's flawed, it doesn't work, and we need to tear it down and start over so that we can get to a place in society where everyone's equal and education is a tool of that.
And X?
Oh, I help her.
Oh, what's it called? He helps and supports.
Yeah. I'm here for most of them. I'm like, yeah, go on, yeah, you do it, tear it down.
So that's true, but there's more than that.
But
what else do you do?
I mean, I guess by trade, if that is a thing even, like I'm a photographer. So yeah, I'm a photographer. I do videography as well, and so I guess the way I fit into this is to provide moral support and whatever else. But I think the last project that ALANNA was working on over in America, it was the Thanksgiving period and the Christmas period, was I was helping to document some interviews they were doing around changing the narrative of educational disadvantage. And that was primarily in the United States, where they were talking to teachers, parents, people who were essentially running non-profits as well, all around changing education and what the education system is, what it should be, what it could be, how everyone contributes to it, how everyone should be contributing to it, what everyone's getting out of it, and I think most importantly, what people aren't getting out of it. And that's from not just students, but because you think of it, oh yeah, you know what students get out of school at the end of it, but it's students, it's parents, it's teachers, and ultimately it's society as a whole, because you educate these children and they become the adults of tomorrow. We were educated in the system, and we are now the society that exists. And so if education is failing those students, if it's disadvantaging those students, it's ultimately disadvantaging not just our community. So as a black person, yeah, it's affecting the black communities, but on the wider societal and the global level, it's disadvantaging everybody. So I'm there to take pictures and film.
I want to add quite a bit to that if I can. So the project that we worked on, so primarily myself and my organisation, we go in and we work with teachers in the classroom. We get them to question their assumptions of the children that they teach, because often you find that teachers working in the most deprived areas often have very low expectations of the children. And you know what I've often found, especially when I was teaching, was that we were only teaching to the test. You know, teachers and schools under a lot of pressure to hit certain targets, and that's all we were doing, as opposed to actually teaching the whole child. So what we go in and do is we go in and we work with teachers to challenge those assumptions, to create visions that go beyond, you know, just passing an exam, and get them to really think about, well, what's best for the child, and how are we really aligning you to your values, so that you're doing what's the very best, because we can't trust the system to do that for the children anymore. But I just wanted to talk about the last project we worked on, which was, it came out as a result of the fact that I've been running this company for 5 years, trying to challenge educational disadvantage, trying to go in and work with lots of schools and teachers, but being a young black female, often I come up against a lot of questions, and doors that are closed to me. I've been told by head teachers, oh, you look a bit young, or, you know, whatever assumptions they make. Because, you know, if I was coming in to do a mentoring program for, you know, little black girls or little black boys, that would be fine. However, I'm coming in to work with their teachers, I'm coming in to work with their leadership teams and consult. And often that's something that's afforded to white, middle class or upper class men. And so I got very frustrated with that, because inequality doesn't only exist within education in the classroom, but it also exists in who's able to talk about it and who's able to challenge it. And I've gotten very frustrated with this narrative of the white saviour that comes in and saves the education system. And because at the end of the day, I see this problem. We all see this problem, and there are loads of people who are tirelessly working around that. There's loads of black people, black professionals, black activists doing loads of things. People that may not be black, people that may be from other backgrounds, other ethnicities, other demographics, and I wanted to shine a light on that. And the reason that Echo was the perfect person to do that was because his specialty is documenting blackness. He does amazing projects working with capturing different events and occasions where he's shining light on black people. And I wanted to do that. I wanted to change the narrative of educational disadvantage and see who's actually doing the work. It's not just me, there's other people in the community, and I thought Echo would be the best person to capture that.
That's great insights. I want to pause there and take it back a second, because what would be interesting to know is both of your experiences. I want you to just a brief overview of your upbringing, your qualifications, what you studied, and also, if you possible, were you given any kind of career advice that put you on the path to where you're at now, or was it about self-realization to where you're at now? So basically, you're about your upbringing, especially you, Alanna, with your parents, about Saturday school. Tell me about that, and also then we can go to X about his as well.
Yeah, no. So I'm 31. I've been teaching since the age of 12 because my family run a Saturday school in West London. Again, they've been doing, so my family from the Caribbean, education was a very important thing, especially with the regards to social mobility. And so, you know, that was something that they instilled within us. But when my aunts came over from the Caribbean, they noticed that other children and other parents in the area wanted that kind of support, and so started a Saturday school in the Southall area, which is predominantly Southeast Asian communities, again, people who value education. And so Saturdays, that's where me, my cousins, and my aunt spent our time teaching. I was forced to go there from the age of 12 and spend my Saturdays there. Yes, I resent that, because everybody else was allowed to play. I had to spend my Saturdays teaching. However,
face your books.
I have a job as a result of it, so I have to be grateful. But yeah, so I was doing that. And funnily enough, so I was teaching for that long. And then I was very anti becoming a teacher. Because I was like, teachers don't get paid. They have no one respects them, so I'm not being a teacher. So my degree, funnily enough, I went to the School of Oriental and African Studies, so SOAS, which is a university in central London. I studied social anthropology and African studies with Swahili. And the reason I did that was because I think as I got into my teens, I started to realise I'm a bit different. I went to a predominantly white school, had a great time, but also realised that, nah, man, I need to learn stuff about myself. So I was drawn to do a degree where I would get to explore that. And then while I did my degree, I then realised, you know what, I love learning the information that I'm learning. Why did I have to wait till I was in my 20s to learn about the history of the Caribbean and Africa and our contributions to Britain? You know, we should be learning that in schools. So then I started to think, you know what, maybe I can do this teaching thing, but just so that I can teach the kids them about the truth. And then I got into teaching. I went through the Teach First route. And because of my A-level in maths, I was made to teach maths, which I was happy with because I'd been teaching maths at the Saturday school. And I taught maths in Southeast London there, loved it, and I was placed in a predominantly white working class area, which was weird because I had planned to go into education to help the black children. So I'm like, what's going on? This isn't part of my master plan. And then while I was there, that's when I realised, oh my gosh, school isn't only failing black children, it's failing the poor white children, it's failing everyone. And that's when I realised, no, I can't be part of this. I have to challenge this. I have to change this. And that's when I decided to leave. So that's my background.
Okay. Just to pause for one moment before we hear about Ek's story. Viewers watching this now and in the future, please comment below if there's any about your experiences, whether it's from your pupil, a parent, a teacher assistant, principal, anyone that works for government, local council, involved, supplementary school, homeschools. We'd love to hear about your experiences, about the UK education system, and also overseas. You know, what's working, what isn't. Comment below, share this. We'd love to hear from you. X, we'd love to hear about your upbringing, and also was there any creativity that you encouraged, but any careers advice that lead you to your photography now, or even on your palaver?
No, oh yeah, because I haven't mentioned that I'm a intermittent podcaster. Because, I mean, yeah, let me just plug Palaver real quick because shameless plug. Myself and a good friend of mine, Danny, who's based in the United States, decided to put together a transnational tete-a-tete. Transnational Pan-African tete-a-tete. Mm-hmm. So it's basically it's black folk from across the diaspora having conversations just around whatever it is that we want to talk about. But she's American, or African American as some would want to say, so she comes from that perspective. I am black British, but my heritage is African and Caribbean. One of my parents is from Ghana and one is from Montserrat, so I'm literally from both. When I say African Caribbean, like I literally mean it. And then we did have some other friends involved. One of them is based in Ghana, an amazing writer called Bontri Anyete. And then I had a friend who is West Indian but based in London called Chrissy. She's, I think Jamaican. I shouldn't say I think. I'm literally like, because I'm from Ghana and from a small island in the West Indies, I have to hate on Nigerians and Jamaicans just as standard.
See your life.
I have to. It's just what it is. I always denied her Jamaicanness, but she's Jamaican. And so the idea was that we all come from, as much as we're all black, we have these different perspectives, and so they're, worth sharing and whatever else. So that's my shameless plug done. Education-wise, so like I said, I grew up in a house with an African parent and a West Indian parent. And I don't think their values were that much different. And I think where they were different, my dad always defers to my mum. He says my mum's the smartest person he knows, so whatever happens, you should listen to her, and tells me all the time we would do well to listen to women. The world would be better off if women were running things. So, and he was saying it before it was cool.
Correct man.
Before it was cool, he was saying that. And so education was always that thing. And it's a strange thing, because I know one of the conversations we had in the video, I know that one of the videos that's going to come out from the Rivers on Tour was with a teacher who talks about when you grow up where he grew up, you're expected to do, certain things. You're supposed to be a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I think the perception is when you're a black person who's perceived of as smart, you have to go and do something that is perceived of as worthy of someone who's smart. There are lots of, as much as that we have artists and we have creators of different things and in the world, we don't steer our, I shouldn't say we don't, because some obviously people do, but the general consensus is that being artistic is a waste of a good mind, almost. And so, like, you might not necessarily be disencouraged from doing that in your personal life, but as far as education goes, unless you're like a prodigy of some kind on an instrument or with the paintbrush and easel and whatever else, that's not what you do. As in, you focus on your maths, you focus on your science, you focus on English not with the purpose of being a writer or an author or a poet. You focus on it with the purpose of maybe being a journalist or an editor. But generally, even then, it's just so you can master English, so you can use the biggest words possible in a sentence and confuse everyone, because it proves you're smarter. And while my parents weren't, and I say all of that, and I always feel guilty about talking about how I perceived everything, because it makes my parents, so I think it makes a lot of parents sound backwards. It makes them sound like they didn't care about us or didn't love us and didn't want the best for us. And I think that was always the case. They always wanted the best for us, but there's a particular way it's looked at. And so I was smart, I was curious, I liked reading books, I liked finding out about animals, I liked reading about space and whatever else. And so the idea was, you're going to be a scientist. As a child, I don't have a context for what a scientist is, other than, TV and movies and whatever else. You don't conceptualize the different branches of science that exist. And this was before I knew about Big Pharma and Big Chem and, when all these other branches of science, or what science sits in terms of practice, that on a moral standpoint, I don't agree with a lot of the time. And so, but I went down that path. We had assessments in school. I did all right in school up to a point. When I say all right, like I did well, like most times I was more or less, if I wasn't at the top of the class, I was near the top of the class with things, top set for everything and whatever else. And I remember the time when I set in stone, like, oh, you have to go down the science route. We did, it wasn't a careers test, it was like an aptitude test. And I went through it, and it came out like I was really good at logic and really good at problem solving and whatever else. And it was like, you would be best going down these paths of problem solving and whatever else. And it literally put me towards biochemistry.
How old were you? What age?
So I was I think I was 15 at this point.
Okay, so that's key stage, what's that? 4. Key stage 4.
It's a key stage. Yeah, it's key. So I decided this is what I'm going to do now. So I picked my A-levels in line with that. And which meant that, and that wasn't the only thing it said I should do, but because in my family, this is all that not just my parents, and my parents not so much, they weren't necessarily like always harping on about it, but my cousins, my aunts and whatever else, oh, it's professor, yeah, Eko's good at science. And so I figured, oh yeah, I'm good at science and that's what I really want to do. So I ignored everything else that was on that in that folder, because we got the results back, and I know somewhere in my parents' house I've still got that. And I ignored everything else that was on it and went, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And I picked my A-levels.
You personally ignored, or were you steered by...
No, I ignored it. I told my
so
parents...
So teachers or career advisors didn't steer you elsewhere?
They didn't. I remember the career advisor, which was the first and only career advisor I'd ever seen, told me about it. And she explained everything else that was on it. But I was like, oh no, this is me, because this is what I've always been. So I went and I picked my A-levels. Hated it and did badly at my A-levels. Somehow managed to still get into university on the course I wanted. Got accepted to Westminster University, which my parents were shocked at, because they were like, oh, woe is me, you know, all is lost, he's done terribly in his A-levels, and I still got into, you know, a decent university on the course I wanted. And I got a year... Before I was over with my first year, I was like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. And before my second year was over, I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. And now I had a decision to make, because my parents are still black. I'm about to tell them I'm not going to university anymore. I don't fully remember how that conversation went.
Blackout.
No, see, and that was the thing. There was no violence involved, but I know there was... My mum still hasn't forgiven me for that. And, you know, my mum will never forgive me until I get a degree for that. Like, that aspect. Like, my mum loves me and whatever else, but she'll never forgive me until that. And mostly because... And my dad, while it's no, oh, like, they haven't forgiven me, it's more but you need this, because if you don't have this and anything happens in life, you won't be able to move forward. You'll be disadvantaged and whatever else. And this is with me knowing that right now, if I have a degree, I can still be unemployed. I'm not unemployed, but I know a degree is not going to save me from unemployment. The debt I ended up leaving university with is nothing compared to the debt I would have had if I'd finished. And that's not to justify it one way or the other, but these were things that I had to weigh up and whatever else. So I essentially was a university dropout. Didn't know what I was going to... I was drifting through similar kinds of jobs where I was usually working in some... I was education adjacent almost all the time. Education adjacent and advocacy adjacent with the work I was doing. And I'll tell you when I realised I really loved... Like, I've always loved images. I've loved images, particularly of animals, because that's what... was always my obsession. I used to borrow library books and I knew I could identify birds and whatever else. And I went on a trip to Ghana, where my mom's from, this year. We went to... I remember I got conned by my mobile phone carrier this year, and instead of getting an iPhone, I ended up with some Samsung phone. But the camera was brilliant. And I know this is like a long story about my education, but I remember the camera was brilliant on it. And I was doing a walk through Pupil National Park. We were doing a canopy walk through the rainforest. This is the rainforest, so it's near the western region. And in Ghana. This is in Ghana. Yeah. So this is in Ghana. Did that, and we also did Ibri, which is the botanical gardens there. And I was taking pictures, and I literally, like, everyone was like, oh, you know, trying to rush me, and I'm just taking pictures, because I'm trying to capture what it is I'm seeing. And I was never going to share it with anyone, I don't think, at the time, but I wanted to capture it in case someone saw it, so that I could show it to someone. And that's when I fell in love with photography. That's when I was like, I started like trying to take better pictures, and I don't know, it was a few years later I started borrowing cameras from friends when I'd be going to places, or, you know, just whatever, like even just going around London, like walking or doing whatever. And I think eventually I was like, I need to get my own camera so I can do this, because this is something I enjoy, this is something I love. And I mean, the documenting blackness bit came later, but like that's when I discovered it. And so because I realized I loved it, I started finding people who knew more about it. I always felt it was kind of fraudulent because I've never been to art school, haven't been to design school, haven't learned graphics or anything like that. But I knew what moved me and what I liked. And so I was like, okay, if I want to get better at this, I need to find people who are better at it than me and ask them what to do. And so in a way, it's always been like this informal education for myself. So I haven't been to a school or whatever else, but I know how my camera works. I know how to get it to work the way I want it to. I know how to get the picture I want, because where I haven't been able to, I've gone back and gone, okay, excuse me. And, you know, I've got the people who I go to and I go, okay, I was trying to do this, it didn't happen. How do I do that? And
the thing is, you're saying it's a long story, but it's an insightful story, because it's the story of millions of people globally. So my thing hearing that about the both of you who are, you know, as you say, following your own spirit, self-taught, empowering yourself with the skills that may not, it is offered, it is there if you find it in certain different educational stages. But my thing I want to ask you both is, in what I think I've read Alanna on Rivers Coaching blogs and elsewhere saying is an archaic system, UK and elsewhere, an archaic system, programs of study, curriculum and such, on a whole. And also Sir Ken Robinson says this, that schooling kills creativity. My thing is asking, you both have modern thinking that doesn't fully fit, a modern thinking circle that doesn't fit in the square of the UK system and elsewhere globally. So how are you finding that within the people you support for Rivers Coaching in terms of the teachers? How are they coming to you for that reason? And X as well, the people you meet, parents, students, other creatives or any other fields, their modern thinking, finding a way, and the people who fall between the gaps, who don't know about you guys yet, these stories yet. You know, solutions to these issues.
So, for one, I agree. The education system is extremely archaic for a lot of reasons. Sir Ken Robinson does a piece of the RSA. It's famous all over the internet. He also does a TED talk where he talks about the archaicness of the education system and the fact that it still functions according to the needs of an industrial economy. We're not there anymore. And so he talks about like the fact that we are still, you know, herding our children in and teaching them in the same, so it's in a really arbitrary way, such that they have to learn in the same age groups and have to learn at the same time, even though we all learn at different times in different ways. We learn in very kind of siloed ways, such that we learn English and maths and science, when actually the world doesn't exist in that way, in compartmentalized ways. So it's archaic in that respect. But it's also archaic in the fact that we live in an ever-changing world, in the sense that the world that I was born into is ridiculously different to the world that I'm in right now. And, you know, if I think of my parents or my grandparents, I don't know if the world changed as quickly in the space of 30 years as it has done for me. And so one thing that I just don't think the education system is responsive. It's very much stuck in its ways and is not willing to change. And overall, the reason I think that it does that is because it serves a certain group of people. It serves those who are in power, and therefore you're not going to change something if it serves you. My argument is that actually everybody suffers, even those who are in power. And so I often give the argument between, you know, things that are happening in private schools versus things that are happening in normal state schools. And in private schools, yes, I do think they actually have access to a better education, not because they have better teachers, because they don't have better teachers, not even because they're looking at better curriculum per se, but because they are encouraging the children to think, to open their minds, to develop lots of those soft skills that you need to be successful in the world. Like, it doesn't matter if you can recite poetry. It actually doesn't matter how good you are at maths or not, because at the end of the day, there's going to be technology and stuff that will come and wipe you out with that anyway. But how responsive are you to the world that's changing around you? How cool and comfortable are you with change? Are you able to adapt? Are you able to persevere and be resilient? We're not teaching our children this in schools, and that's a problem. And so when you talk about, you know, the teachers I work with, and you know how do they fit in to this issue, it's bloody hard, because for the most part the schools sit within this flawed system. And so what that means is they are having to fall in line with the standards and the measures of accountability that system imposes on them.
State-funded schools?
Yes, state-funded schools, and those are the schools that I work with, and those are the majority of the schools. State-funded schools represent, I believe, 95% of the education that is provided for schools. And so when we think about that, even if those schools or those teachers or those head teachers in their hearts have the best of intentions, what they are held accountable to and what they are measured by is the very things that make the system flawed. So they're not held accountable to how well the children are able to adapt, how well the children are able to persevere, you know, the development of leadership skills, the development of being able to you know, use and critique information. No, you're being measured on, you know, can a child pass this test? Basic cognitive skills. And actually what that does is have a real impact on how we're able to compete as an economy in the wider world. And so when I think about the teachers, some teachers or many teachers agree with me, but in their most immediate, in terms of what they're going to get measured by, how they're going to get their paycheck, how they're able to progress, what I'm talking about is not their priority. And so, you know, it's hard. It doesn't matter what I'm talking about, because it doesn't really make the immediate difference to their lives. And so, yeah, it's a really hard one.
X, do you have anything for that?
No, I mean that's it. I mean, the only thing I guess that changes, I guess, if you're from the, I guess, lower economic classes, or however it is that you want to put it to make yourself feel better or not, is access. So so with the money comes access to experiences, access to resources, access to information, access to whatever. And so the best example, I shouldn't say it's the best example, but I guess it is an example, is my brothers were homeschooled until they were midway through secondary school. And literally the only reason why my mum then put them in secondary school is A, partly for the social factor, and B, so they could get do the examination, so they could get through to the A level, so they could go to university afterwards. And to what my parents were able to do with me, to some extent, they were able to do to a greater degree with my brothers. Sorry, I say with me like it was just three of us. It's me and my sister. Like, we both went to school from, when we were supposed to have. And we'd go to museums and whatever else, not just with school, like the few times they take us. I think the Natural History Museum was like my favourite place in the world to go to. And so on a very regular basis, my parents would take me there. But with my brothers, because they weren't in school, they were going to museums, they were going to farms, they were travelling more and seeing other places. They lived, I know I lived in Ghana for a year with my parents while they were working on some projects. But my brothers did, back and forth a few times, and doing other things that develop their thinking outside of the school context. Outside of that kind of regimented, you have to do this like this. So maths made some sense to them outside of the context of a paper telling you your times tables.
So applicable in a tangible way.
So, you know, because they would sit with my dad and watch the news, they were learning about politics and they didn't offer politics when I was in at least not in my secondary school. I didn't go to a particularly well-funded secondary school. So I didn't get to do politics. I didn't get to do philosophy and you know, and whatever else, like those more obscure subjects. When brothers were having to do it, we weren't calling it politics or philosophy or sociology and whatever else, but they were doing it. They were doing African studies because they were being taken to talks, you know, at Pan-African talks, not just during Black History Month. At other times, they were being taken to, you know, whatever else. They were going to things with me and my sister and my parents and whatever else. So what they were able to learn outside of that school context is something that, like, if the school system were what we'd like it to be, you would have all of these experiences, exactly what you're talking about, you know, how to develop those soft skills, how to not just be presented with information and to absorb it, but be able to critique it, to be able to you know, look at the validity of an argument while still being able to say, okay, while ultimately this may be flawed, these are some, you know, valid points. Being able to interact with people outside of your age group, you know.
I just wanted to. You've led into my next question. Just before we carry on, we're coming to near the end, but. To those of you watching, again, please comment below what's working, what isn't working, what aren't we hearing about, the achievements, the innovations, the trends. You know, we know that teachers, most teachers, and you know, and headmasters and head teachers and mistresses are champions. A lot of them are working hard. And unfortunately leave the profession due to the weight of the paperwork, the protocols, which obviously safeguarding is important, but the issues that ALANNA and X have raised seem on the front, if you believe most of the mainstream headlines, to be outweighing the good that is being done. So please comment below, tag somebody that you know that works in this profession, parents, teachers, what's happening in all stages of the education system in the UK and abroad, what's working and what isn't. I haven't been in primary school education for a few years, so I had to go on the Department of Education's website just to find out what the actual curriculum is happening. And actually, you know, there seems to be some good. For example, there are subjects that I wish were being taught as programs of study, but things like citizenship, okay, things that a lot of people don't seem. The program of study says about citizenship, democracy, government. What X was just talking about, how laws are made and upheld. What's it called? Weighing evidence, debate, making reasonable arguments, teaching the importance of being responsible citizens, managing their money, and making well and sound financial decisions. Financial literacy that's there is a curriculum, program of study. Is that happening? History. A lot of things here saying about it. A lot of things about weighing evidence about Britain's past. Christopher Columbus, Mary Seacole, Rosa Parks, and/or Florence Nightingale and Mary Seacole. Of course, no mention of enslavement and people theft. Mainly about a non-European society. Early Islamic, Baghdad, Mayan, Benin. All before Anno Domino 900 and other such things. What you mentioned about critical thinking. Now, isn't that a good thing? These are the kind of subjects that are part of the program of study.
I'll be honest, I'm super skeptical even from hearing the list.
Why do you say that? Humanities?
Are you talking about, sorry,
this is primary school.
This is, bear with me a sec, Key Stage 3.
That's not primary.
Key Stage 3, 7 to 9.
Year 7 to 9.
Yeah, 7
not
to
age
9.
7 to 9, year 7 to 9, yeah.
Year 7 to 9, forgive me. And then,
Yeah, I know that's on the curriculum. For example, citizenship used to be compulsory. They then got rid of it. It's no longer compulsory. So it's whether a school decides to opt in or opt out. Now they have to have weekly citizenship lessons, but it doesn't have to be on the curriculum.
That used to be PHSE.
Yeah, they've kind of included the both.
What's PHSE?
what was that? Personal, what was it? Personal something.
Health,
personal health.
And even that's changed as well.
And something, education, like sociology or
so kind of reproduction, sexuality, and sexual health.
No, it was sexual health, but also talking about, I guess, your role in society, but like on vaguely talking about roles and whatever.
I actually thought citizenship was a really great initiative, and what you're talking about on the curriculum does exist. And I haven't said that the curriculum altogether is completely bad. No, there's some really good things on the curriculum. It's across all subjects. And actually what's happened over the last year or so is that the change in the GCSE has actually gone to try and build in some more of these soft skills like the critical thinking, like the deep analysis and whatever else. However, and this is where I spoke about politics, what has politics done to you, is it's very how education always happens to be they just have to deal with the knee-jerk reactions of policy of governments. A new government comes in, therefore they want to stamp their mark, therefore they say we need to scrap the GCSEs. So we've gone from an A to E system to a 1 to 9 system. Why? What difference does 1 to 9 mean as opposed to A to G, the thing that's same? But new government wants to do that to make the thing look different. The point is we're constantly having these knee-jerk reactions. And as a result of that, schools are constantly scrambling because the goalposts are constantly moving. So even if the curriculum is rich, and often, there's people who are thinking about it, and it is connecting to industry, and they are trying to think about it, how that's delivered in practice is not the same thing. And so what that means is, even if it says, yes, we're going to look at, the different histories and compare the different histories of, early Islamic something, and we're going to look at the histories of Rosa Parks versus something else. And by the way, I do have issue with their choices within history, especially within, I don't necessarily think it's reflective of our nation and our contributions as a multicultural society. However, even if that's what they're doing, what the teachers are able to do in practice under tight deadlines and time pressures and all the other things that they have to do.
Ofsted inspections.
Absolutely, which I'm not against, but how schools react to them because they're under so much pressure and it's so, there's such high accountability. What that means is that how it's delivered is not done in a way where children are given the space to explore and think. It's literally, I'm going to spoon feed you. And so what that looks like is if you start to look at A-level pass rates, university dropout rates, in comparison to the number of great children who are passing these great GCSEs, because we haven't developed them to be capable individuals who are able to think, who are able to persevere, who are able to be resilient, who are able to make choices for themselves, it means that as soon as they have to be individuals that have to think and critique on their own, that's where they struggle. And so they might have these rich curriculums, but because they're delivered in a way that that's under such time pressures, based on all the external factors that are happening, it means that those rich curriculums are falling by the wayside and actually become pointless.
The key words that I want to just take from that, falling to the wayside and pressures. The work that you do at Rivers Coaching with your co-founder, would you like to big her up?
I would like to big up my co-founder Chantel Clark, who no longer works with me anymore because she decided to stay in the classroom. She was a citizenship teacher and is still continuing to do that. But I now work with Catherine O'Garro, who is my cousin, but also my colleague. She has been working within education for many years and has been working within the PRUs, and so brings another element. So PRUs are pupil referral units. And that's where, again, another passionate topic of mine, because so many black children end up in PRUs, is where schools struggle, don't know how to look after children, and therefore end up kicking them out into PRUs. So that's where her expertise is. But yes, go on.
So this is my thing. X brought you and Rivers Coaching to my attention, and the reason why we've welcomed you and you're giving great insight is So you've talked about the issues, we talked about the challenges, we talk about that some more. What are the solutions? How does Rivers Coaching, yourself, Catherine and others, give us a kind of day in the life of one of your workshops, how you help, because the pressures that the teachers are facing and are weighed under must impact on the students as well. So impact, how do you help them? What's the impact? How is it a sustainable impact? How is it helping them? Is it lifting morale?
That's one of the first things. So the most immediate thing that got me into to starting this organisation was I saw so many good teachers leaving because of those pressures that I've been talking about. And where you see teachers leaving in droves the most are in the poorest areas, where you see the highest need and the largest amount of need for children, because they're dealing with multiple issues. And so those teachers are under a lot of pressure, because any teacher working in any school, private, public, whatever, are under a lot of pressure. Then add on top other social issues as well. And so what I found was loads of teachers who actually loved the profession, because of those external pressures, were like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm working 16-hour days and I get paid pittance and I get told I'm rubbish every day. Not worth it. Let me go and work in the city, work those same hours and earn 3 times as much. And I'm like, fair enough. And that upset me, because what happens in the poorest areas is you see such high turnover. And what that means is, and I'm sure a lot of people can attest to this, and I'd love you to comment below, is you have children in their GCSE years, you've got children who are sitting their A-levels with supply teachers, with teachers that are in and out, having 3 teachers in their most important years, before they're going on to a university and whatever else. And where is that happening in the most? In the poorest areas. And so my reason for coming in was, my first thing is, we want to hold on to those teachers. We want to let them know, we love you. Thank you for choosing to be a teacher. You're amazing. Yes. You are doing a necessary service, and you don't have to be here. Yes, you can go and earn a lot more money, but you're doing amazing things by just choosing to be here. So that's the first thing that we came in to do at Rivers. The next thing that we came in to do is say, no, we need to change your assumptions and your views. And that speaks to things like unconscious bias that we have, because we are all part of society, and therefore we have ideas about the people that we come across. And so that does translate also into the classroom. If you see a little black boy, if you see somebody who may have a special educational needs, if you see a girl, all of those stereotypes happen in your mind, which means that limits your thinking around how well they can do and the things that they're able to do. We come in as coaches to try and challenge those assumptions. And then we also ask them to raise those aspirations. And what do you think that child can do on their very, very best day? And how do we help you to do that? And finally, we help teachers to realign to their values and their vision. So much of being in school nowadays in this high accountability structure means that you don't have time to teach, because you're just worrying about marking, about, oh my God, GCSEs are coming up. Oh crap, Ofsted are coming in. Why did you come into teaching in the first place? You came in because you wanted to make a difference. I'm going to be the person who holds you to account to that. So where we have Ofsted that holds you account to how many GCSEs you pass, I'm holding you account to your values. Why are you here? Why are you doing this? How are we making that happen in the classroom? How are we making that happen through the homeworks you give them, the activities you do, how you assess them, the relationships you build with them, the culture you build in your classroom? So that's what I do. In speaking about solutions, I don't even think that's a solution. I think that's a start of a solution, and that's a way of empowering teachers to start to realise that there's a problem. The solution is much, much wider, and it may not happen in our lifetimes. And we have to accept that, because this is a big and deep-rooted and deep-seated problem that goes back years and years with things like colonialism, classism, and all the other things that come with it. And so part of my job, at least while I'm here and doing the work that I'm doing, is just to galvanise those groups of people to realise this is a problem and we need to start thinking about it.
Thank you so much. Just for those who do not know, Ofsted is the Office for Standards in Education, Children's Services and Skills, and they inspect and regulate services that care for the children and young people in services providing education and skills for learning of all ages. You're amazing. Viewers watching, as we've said, please comment, share, tag people, like, love. This is solutions. We have X and Alanna here today because I believe that they are solutions in itself. Please go to Rivers Coaching website and check out X work. They're gonna plug, necessarily so, so you can connect with them yourselves.
Yes.
Please.
Yeah. So
first of all,
yes, go on.
shout ourselves. Carry on.
Shout out to who?
Soleil, my niece, who's very bad and naughty. But yes, riverscoaching.co.uk. Go onto the website, have a look, read through all the stuff that we're doing. We are not only a coaching service that works with teachers in the classroom and middle leaders and senior leaders, we're also about research. We think so much of changing the problem is about doing that innovative research and groundbreaking research that's not currently happening, so that we can start to be changing this idea about how we talk about educational disadvantage. And we're also about building a community, a global community of game changers. It's about people that are really willing to engage with the problem as it is, not on a surface level, on a deep level. So anyone who's about it, come and join us. We're here for you. You could be black, white, green or blue. We don't care. If you know there's a problem, come and join us.
I care if you're blue. Seek help, I beg. Okay.
And currently one of the projects that X came on and joined us to work with is called Changing the Narrative. We're going to be posting videos with our talks, talking to great educators and people within the community doing great things that don't often get a light shined upon them. We started off in the States, and Echo did that, and it's called Changing the Narrative. You can put that hashtag in on YouTube, and you can put it in on Instagram and on Facebook, and you should be able to find some stuff. But keep following us, like us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube. Go to the website. We're constantly putting out stuff, constantly putting out research. Any educators out there who are writing and want their stuff up there, please send it through. Connect with us. We want to know you. And yeah, X, please let us know about what your photography. So
I was going to say, because that river stuff is that's side. But yeah, I am Echo Oliver on Facebook. My website for my photography stuff is xoliver.co. That's EKS. Oliver.co. I assume you know how to spell Oliver. And CO is the letters C and O. Mr. Echo on Twitter. I'll talk Palaver. Please do follow. We do Facebook Live broadcasts. We're trying to do monthly now. We took a little bit of a hiatus. We're back. We're Palaver Source on everything. That's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. My co-host is Danny. She's Kinky Thought on everything. So follow us there. And and have a conversation with us. We're here for the conversations. We're here for trying to enlighten each other. We're here for building each other up. That's what I'm doing with Rivers. That's why I'm involved, because things need to change for the better. Yes, as a black person, but for everybody, as in society needs to be better. As in, I think everyone has seen the skew that we've gone on. We've been going down this path now for a very long time. We seem to have gotten to a point where we're now actually moving backwards. We've been going that way for a while, and there's different reasons for it, but we feel like if we start talking, we start learning together, we can start growing together and start moving in the direction we should be. We need to unlearn things, we need to learn new things, we need to be better. So all of that, and also documenting blackness 24/7, 365. Follow me on Instagram. I've got the 365 Days of Blackness.
Which is amazing.
So I'm posting a picture of blackness every day for the year. And I don't know, and hit me up if you want me to take photos for you.
Yeah, sure.
Very correct. Thank you.